Coming up, we take a look back at Tzu Chi Foundation's first international disaster relief. Tzu Chi volunteers in Taiwan help a cancer patient find warmth in the kindness of strangers. Welcome to DaAi Headlines. I'm Mary Lee. Thank you for joining us. We begin today's program in China. As the Lunar New Year is approaching, Tzu Chi volunteers held winter aid distributions in Fuzhou for a total of 2,141 households. Amongst the volunteers helping at the event, many were primary school students and local residents. 6 years has passed. Tzu Chi volunteers again held winter aid distributions in Fuzhou, China. One of the residents said the clothes he wears now were given by Tzu Chi 6 years ago.
You're so nice. Thank you. You not only helped me a lot, but also carry the supplies for me.
This 93-year-old grandma lives alone. The volunteers carried the aid supplies for her while accompanying her home. With the rice, the senior says she could have a good Lunar New Year. Tzu Chi volunteers held winter distributions for 2,141 families in Fuzhou. The volunteers and the recipients interacted like a family.
These supplies are good, so we're very happy. I'll remember this forever. Thank you very much, Amitofo.
Distributing aid supplies in person is different from making donations on the internet. They move supplies in person, so they'll have a deeper impression.
Among the different distribution events, which many took place in remote mountainous regions, nearly half of the volunteers were elementary school students.
When helping others, I feel very happy.
A care recipient's mother also participated in the winter aid distribution as a volunteer in order to pass on the love to others.
The volunteers treat us with love, so I think I should give a little of myself.
Through the many winter aid distributions, Tzu Chi volunteers expressed genuine care to their recipients. Staying in China but moving to Tianjin, Tzu Chi volunteers have recently held their winter aid distribution in the town of Datangzhang, giving out supplies to 22 families in need. Among the recipients were some elderly people whose family members have fallen ill. Expressing their gratitude to Tzu Chi volunteers, these recipients said the volunteers have not only delivered timely assistance ahead of the Lunar New Year, but have treated them like family.
Today, Tzu Chi volunteers have come to Tianjin to visit their old friends again, with aid supplies and warmth.
This is the second time Tzu Chi volunteers hold winter aid distribution in Datangzhang town. The residents keep saying thank you. Among them is 70-year-old Li Weiqi, whose families are either too young or have fallen ill.
You brought warmth to us. If it was not for your assistance, we would not know how to celebrate the Lunar New Year. My family members have fallen ill.
Tzu Chi volunteers have conducted preliminary visits to these 23 families.
I have not washed my old blanket for years. I can toss it away and use the new one. It is timely assistance. I was thinking about buying rice, so your supplies are timely assistance. You're not related to me, but treat me like your family, really.
Among the volunteers is a mother-daughter pair who have put their love into action.
We usually just talk about love, but today we feel good about putting our love into action. We will participate in more charity works in the future.
After the winter aid distribution, the volunteers also hold a year-end blessing ceremony for the residents in the afternoon, delivering their best wishes to the participants while illuminating the light in their hearts.
There is a volunteer group in Guangdong province with over 500 members from all walks of life. Two things they have in common are they're all women and they all hope to share love with others. Recently, at Tzu Chi's invitation, the group visited a rehabilitation center for children with special needs in Shenzhen.
Tzu Chi volunteers and members of the Aishin group visited the rehabilitation center in Shenzhen to spread some cheer to the children there. Bringing some daily necessities, they put their heart into the event. To keep the children healthy, the adults made sure they wouldn't spread any germs. The Aishin group is a volunteer group based in Shenzhen, made up of 500 women from all different walks of life. At Tzu Chi's invitation, they were happy to participate in the event.
If there's another event, I'll be there. Because the kids are just so cute. They might not be so active, but they know that we really care about them.
When I got to see them all, I wanted to cry. I couldn't help it. I feel so sorry for these children. No mom or dad. They really don't have much and get much love. It makes me think how fortunate my children are.
Everyone brings a lot of energy to the event, but the children can give little in return. The volunteers are not deterred. Instead, they double their efforts.
With these kids, I think we should do as much as possible. Just showing them a little love and care, the kind of warmth a mother would give. Actually, all are members of the same 500 women. So as women coming here, if we can share a bit of a mother's love with them, I think that's what we should do.
These ladies have taken just a little time out of their regular working lives to share a little love and gentleness with those who will appreciate it.
In May of 1991, regions in eastern China suffered from massive rainfall that led to severe flooding. Knowing the severity of the devastation, Master Zhenyan called on her disciples in Taiwan to help those in need, despite opposition from the public. This humanitarian aid from Tzu Chi to China on behalf of Taiwan not only paved the way for more international aid relief from the organization to other far-reaching countries, but also acted as an olive branch in cross-strait relations with China. In today's Tzu Chi 50th anniversary series, we take a look back on how 1991 helped Tzu Chi set the model for further international relief in the future. 1991 was a turbulent year. That year, the Gulf War broke out. Coalition forces, led by the United States, commenced to begin Operation Desert Storm and attacked Baghdad. September of that year, South Africa signed a national peace accord.
Our signatures alone cannot light the path to peace.
Then in December, the Soviet Union broke up.
At the time, in Taiwan, martial law had just been lifted for a few years. Cross-strait relationship was not established at all. The two sides had avoided contact for over 40 years.
Then Secretary General of Straits Exchange Foundation, Chen Changwen, remembers that in 1991, there was still tension between Taiwan and China. However, China then suffered a massive flooding unseen in a century. Massive rainfall began to flood parts of eastern China, and the Yangtze River Basin overflowed. With a total of over 280 million people affected, it was the first time China's government massively sought international help. Hearing of the devastation, Master Zhenyan called on her disciples to look deep within their hearts and help those suffering in China.
这当阵，一粒米是较大过粟米山。咱也会当头讲哦，伊现在当咧枵的时阵，咱也会当把这个物件送去互伊去。这份是开拓了呢台湾跟大陆的一个历史，这等于呢是终日月啦。
我记得呢，我们启动专款劝募。 这一波波的救济工作，虽然是很辛苦，后援的不断的劝募，而且呢，我说我要为当地无家可归的人呐、建房屋， 大家都吓了一跳啊！
其实，在当时上人决定要盖房子。
When the master decided to build houses for them, not just homes, but over 3,000 two-story homes with reinforced concrete and brick, I responded. Typically, in international relief, the norm is to build homes made of metal. The master looked at me sternly and asked, "Would you live in a home like that?" Feeling the intensity of her stare, I took a few steps back and answered, "No, of course not." The master then replied, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you."
上人说：“己所不欲，勿施于人。”
In charge of the construction at the time, He Guoqing still vividly recounts the project as if it was yesterday, while Zheng Mingwen, a volunteer for the past 35 years, recounts her canvassing efforts.
This is me. I was canvassing donation for China's flood relief. My daughter was in kindergarten at the time. Every time I returned, my donation box was heavy with the love of the public. One time, a taxi drove by, and the driver started yelling at me, saying that Tzu Chi wasn't helping Taiwan, but stood on China's side. We were taking hard-earned Taiwanese money, giving it to China for them to purchase ammunition to attack Taiwan with.
Despite the oppositions, volunteers stood firm in their belief of doing the right thing and continued to hit the streets to ask the public for a bit of compassion.
Humanitarian aid relief work back then was not as easy as it is now. The relationship between the two sides wasn't as friendly. However, the master said, we need to overcome the obstacles as there was a need. We need to help.
Transforming love into material aid and sending it to China for such a large disaster was not easy. The foundation must first establish some principles such as respect and directness. Relieving the hard-hit zones first, aid distribution began in Anhui Province's Quanzhou County. And at the same time, medical outreach, building homes for displaced residents, and Project Hope's rebuilding of schools simultaneously commenced, thus setting the tone and model for which Tzu Chi's humanitarian aid would eventually be known as.
We began our first international relief in 1991, and in 2015, our relief efforts have reached 91 countries. Our missions were able to spread due to volunteers turning the Saha land into pure land.
Vowing to be Master Zhen Yan's legs for the past 25 years is Global Volunteer Coordinator Stephen Huang, who says even today, with China's economics rapidly increasing, the DaAi village homes built back then are still in perfectly good condition, and those who live there have left behind their days of poverty as well.
The great suffering caused by the eastern flooding in China brought out the best in Tzu Chi's work. The volunteers love to care for those suffering, and it is really something I have the utmost respect for.
After the flood relief was over, Tzu Chi Foundation used the remaining donations to establish an international relief fund specifically for future disaster relief efforts. And from that point forward, Tzu Chi volunteers would spread their wings and travel whatever distance needed to bring hope to the suffering. In 2010, a Jingsi Books and Cafe in Suzhou opened its doors to the public, and it is the only store established by an overseas nonprofit organization in China. This beginning marked a new chapter in Tzu Chi's history, as the volunteers promised to continue to help those suffering all over the world. Tzu Chi volunteers in Songshan district of Taipei have been caring for a solitary cancer patient for 1.5 years. Ms. Zhao, who is too feeble to care for herself due to her illness, was shunned by her own relatives. When she felt helpless, the volunteers embraced her with love and care and even helped her clean up her place. Ms. Zhao said that perhaps it was God's will that she met these strangers who have brought her the power of love.
After her parents passed away, Ms. Zhao, who is single, was diagnosed with cancer. Being feeble from chemotherapies, she can hardly care for herself.
We hope she can live happily in a very comfortable environment and get better.
To help Ms. Zhao, Tzu Chi volunteers have been accompanying her for 1.5 years. Seeing how sincere the volunteers are, Ms. Zhao finally agreed to let them help clean up her place. On this day, more than 10 volunteers cleared out her house and reorganized the items she uses. They also spent 2 hours rearranging the furniture in her living room.
在我的兄弟姐妹把他们的门窗都关起来的时候，我发现
When my brothers and sisters closed their doors on me, you opened yours for me. Despite my illness, the volunteers always cheer me up. I've just realized that maybe the heaven wants me to come in contact with these strangers. May I hug each and every one of you.
这么多陌生人的爱，我不知道我可以一个个跟你们。谢谢。这个不只是爱的药，其实你们就带来了。
Having pasted Jingsi aphorisms on Ms. Zhao's door, the volunteers have brought her love and warmth that will help her get through the tough times.
In our next report, we meet someone whose life has been turned around through volunteering with Tzu Chi. Zhan Shuqing, who lost 3 loved ones in just half a year, developed an anxiety disorder and then isolated herself from the world. Thanks to her contact with Tzu Chi, she joined the ranks of recycling volunteers and opened up her heart once more.
After losing her mother, younger sister, and husband in 6 months, Zhan Shuqing felt despaired and helpless. Being extremely sad and lonely, she fell ill.
I had a serious panic disorder. I feared everything I came in contact with and kept shivering.
More than 1.5 years ago, Zhan joined the ranks of recycling volunteers. From sorting out recyclables repeatedly, she regained strength in her shaking hands and weak legs.
Sorting out recyclables is similar to sorting out lotuses. I tell them, I love you, lotus. I will pick you up. The master's teachings healed my heart, while the doctor healed my illness. After recycling, I became healthy and happy.
Zhan, who once shut herself off from the world, began to embrace the world with open mind after volunteering, and thereby found a new purpose in life.
Next, we meet another Tzu Chi volunteer who turned over a new leaf through volunteering with Tzu Chi and listening to the master's teachings. Li Wenshu had a troubled youth and he was often beaten by his father. As he grew up, he also resorted to violence to resolve his problems, so much so that he even joined a gang to strengthen his power. His life took a turn for the better after his wife brought him to Tzu Chi, but it wasn't easy for him to change his violent temper until Master Zhenyan enlightened him.
Tzu Chi volunteer Li Wenshu is a very tough man, but when he talks about a conversation he had with the master, it brings tears to his eyes.
The master told me that she has no time to wait for me to change. I am not a very special man. How can I let a senior in her 70s be concerned about me? I'm so sorry.
Now 64 years old, Li Wenshu said that when he was little, his father always treated him violently. After he grew up, he too resorted to violence to solve anything. He even joined a gang. After his wife Hong Jinglan brought him to Tzu Chi, he changed and so did his family.
I once went astray and did not listen to advice. After I joined Tzu Chi, I changed a lot. Now my family is blessed and wonderful.
Having led a deluded life in the first half of his life, Li Wenshu is now ready to use his potential to benefit the public for the rest of his life.
Plagued by debt, poverty, and unemployment, Jordan has another major problem at hand: over 630,000 Syrian refugees who now reside in Jordan. To help the refugees and impoverished Jordanians, Tzu Chi volunteers visit them once a month, delivering relief supplies. While delivering timely assistance, the volunteers have also learned to be grateful from these visits.
Tzu Chi volunteers go to Jordan Valley to visit Aung Fusian and her family. 3 generations live in this small tent. Despite their poverty, they are content.
Bye-bye.
In Al Fuhays, a small town to the west of Amman, 80% of the population are Catholics. 74-year-old John was a teacher in Lebanon. Now a refugee in Jordan, he relies on Tzu Chi's assistance to look after his blind sister.
Anything is not good, wrong.
Ignore.
I ignore it. I don't accept it.
But you are positive. That's why I make you always smiling.
Yes.
The music from his harmonica is full of joy. The volunteers feel heavy-hearted visiting this family. The family depends on the mother because the children are mentally challenged due to marriage between relatives.
In Nepal, local Tzu Chi volunteers did their part in promoting Tzu Chi's campaign of vegetarianism. In just 3 days, volunteers young and old visited a total of 19 schools and businesses and collected over 8,000 signatures in response to adopting a vegetarian diet for a day. Disappearing icebergs, disappearing home of the polar bears. What can one do to help decrease the impact of climate change? The answer is taking on a vegetarian diet. To promote vegetarianism to more people, volunteers in Nepal, though few in numbers, spent 3 days visiting 19 schools and organizations to get their message across. In addition, volunteers also encouraged people from all walks of life to pledge to adopt a vegetarian diet for a day.
After listening to the campaign, I realized that the simplest way to protect the planet is by eating vegetarian food. Starting from today, I will do my best to reduce my consumption of meat products.
If half the population in the world adopted a vegetarian diet, perhaps climate change would not continue to worsen. In the end, it's up to everyone's cooperation, as anyone can adopt a vegetarian diet to help the planet. At the end of the program, we joined Tzu Chi volunteers as they hold an aid distribution for fire victims of a local hostel in Buttersworth, Malaysia, which included the hostel's owner and the shop owner whose store was caught in the line of the fire. Volunteers hope the aid provided will bring some comfort to the individuals as they start their path of rebuilding. We will leave you with these images. Thank you for joining us. Goodbye.